boys and girls, it's Miss Lisa, your art teacher. Welcome back to my table of art. I just want to let you know I miss you all so very, very much. I hope you're doing well, and I hope you miss me too. I can't wait till we're together, but until then, I hope you're watching my videos and doing the art projects. It's very important to me that you are keeping art into your life. Now listen, if you don't have supplies, please tell your teacher. We will get the supplies to you, but you need to let us know. I want to make sure you're doing the projects, and you have no reason not to. So, this is week 4 of summer session, and you're learning all about habitats this week. We are going to do a project about one specific habitat. I chose the rainforest because I love the rainforest. I think it's absolutely beautiful with all the plush foliage, the trees, the animals. And I chose a really colorful bird to work with for our project. It's called a toucan. Toucan. Can you? Anyway, this is our art project for today, or this week. It's going to be a watercolor, and I'm going to teach you some techniques. This is a wet-on-wet technique, which I sprinkled a little salt on to give it this crystallized effect. And we're going to paint the whole bird. And this bird is part of the rainforest, which is what we're going to learn about. Now, the rainforest provides all the toucan's needs. What are the basic needs that the toucan needs to live and survive in the rainforest? Well, first off, the toucan needs food. But let me tell you something else first. I'm going to back up this camera because I want to show you something. There's different layers in the rainforest, okay? There's the top layer, which is the tallest trees in the rainforest. That is called the emergent layer. That's not where the toucan lives. The next layer is called the canopy. That's where the toucan lives. In the canopy level, the toucan has shelter. He has shelter from everybody above because they can't see him because he's down in the emergent or the canopy section. The emergent section is covering him from anything above. So they're nice and safe in this section, and how plush and thick this area is, the canopy section, they can't see the toucan from below. So they're safe from any predators that are below them, and they're safe from any predators that are above. So their shelter is in the canopy section of the rainforest. How about food? They don't have to go anywhere. This section and all the sections actually have all the fruits that they need to survive. And the fruits are very colorful. And the color of our toucan blends right in with the colors of the vibrant fruits. So that's his protection, another way of surviving. So here's where our food is, and here is our shelter. How about water? Well, there's big leaves in the rainforest, and the water from the rain collects on the leaves, and that's enough water for the toucan. But if there's any way that he might need some more water, he just goes down to the bottom level, which is the forest floor, and he can get some water down there. There's another layer. This is called the understory layer. It's kind of the medium-sized trees and shrubs. Can you see that? So we have the very top, which is the emergent. Then we have the next section, which is the canopy. Then we have the understory, which is kind of shorter and younger trees. And then just below that is the undergrowth. Those are smaller shrubs, trees. This section of our rainforest gets very little sunlight. Toucans get some sunlight. Even though there's emergent trees above it, they can still get the sunlight. Okay, so that's enough about the layers of our rainforest and how our toucans survive. Oh, but one other thing. If a toucan wants to have any baby toucans, they do it right in the crevices of the trees. They find little spots that they can nest and lay their eggs. I believe it's like 1 to 2 eggs, or 2 to 4 eggs a toucan would lay. So they have everything they need in the rainforest habitat. So rainforest habitat is what we're working with this week in our art project. And the toucan in the rainforest is what we're going to make. All right, now I'm going to send to you a template of the toucan, because you might find it difficult to draw on your own. You can try. Please, I'd encourage you to try, but I don't want you to be stressed out. I want you to relax and enjoy this project. So if you feel you need my template, by all means, use the template. All right, I'm going to focus down on my table, so just give me a second to adjust my camera, and I'll be right back, okay? Okay, so let's get started with our project. Again, we're doing the rainforest. That's the habitat that we're working with. And we're working with the toucan. And the toucan lives in the rainforest, in the canopy layer of the rainforest. What kind of weather do you think is in the rainforest? Do you think it's cold? I don't think so. I think it's tropical. Tropical weather is very, very warm. And that's where Mr. Toucan lives. All right, so I'm going to put this aside. And we're going to get started. Now I'm going to be sending you 2 sheets of construction paper. One is in case you make an error and you want to do it over, because we are learning a new technique. So in case you don't like the way it came out, you could try again. I'm also going to be sending you the template. Now, the thing about the template, if you want your toucan to be facing in the same direction as my toucan, you're going to have to trace it from behind. And a secret way to do that is to just put your toucan in the window backwards, and you could see the outline of the toucan, because the light coming through, you'll be able to see the silhouette of the toucan, and you can just trace it with your pencil. And then when you transfer it onto the paper, your toucan will be facing in the same direction as mine. If that doesn't matter to you, then don't worry about it. You can face in any direction you want. So we're working with watercolors. So obviously what you're going to need are your watercolors. Please, if you don't have any supply at home, let your teacher know. If your teacher knows, she will tell me and I will get it for you. And she will send it home to you. But I can't unless you tell me. So please let me know if you need anything. Just grabbing a paintbrush. Hold on. All right, so I have my watercolors ready. And I'm using 2 types of brushes today. One's a little bit bigger, wider, and the other one's more of a pointy tip. I want to use the wider one for the background. Now, what I did with my painting, it's sort of a blurred effect. There's really no detail because I want the focus to be on the toucan, but I want the illusion of the beautiful rainforest behind the toucan, which is all the beautiful greens, and there's yellows. I'm not putting any fruit in the background. I just want that very tropical, luxuriously foliage green feel. And I want it to be lighter up on the top because that's where the sunlight will be coming through the emergent layer, which is the very top layer. But it'll be a little bit darker on the bottom because as you go lower in the rainforest levels and layers, less sunlight hits. So our colors will be more light on the top and darker on the bottom. So what we're going to do first is we need to transfer the toucan to our paper. Now I actually can see the toucan through the paper, but I'm going to do it this way. So he'll be facing the opposite direction of my sample. So I'm going to need a pencil. I'll get a pencil from over here. And I'm just going to trace my toucan first, okay? And this is the way I'm going to transfer him onto the paper. Remember, when you're transferring the toucan, you also can cut this whole image out with a scissor and then just trace it as a template. That's up to you. There's 2 ways of doing it. One would be to use your pencil, like I'm doing. And the other way would be to cut out the toucan and just trace it along the way. But I'm going to use the pencil to transfer the image. And I make sure that I outline every part of this toucan so I can transfer the whole toucan onto the construction paper. And really, don't worry about being super neat. We really just need to get this image onto the paper. Remember to use a heavy hand when tracing so that that graphite transfers to the construction paper. That's what the secret is, the transfer of the graphite to the construction paper. So I'm almost done here. I know I should have done this and had it ready for you, but actually this is good because you can see what I'm doing, and I'd like you to see what I'm doing. Just tracing all along the black lines. This is a branch in the canopy level that the toucan is standing on, and you can see all the greenery hanging down from the branch. There's all kinds of vines and foliage within the canopy. The rainforest is really very beautiful. I went zip lining across the rainforest. Did you ever go zip lining? It's very scary. I did it once. That's it. Once was enough for me. I try to do everything at least once. I don't say, nope, I can't do that. I like to say, let me try and see how it goes. And if I like it, I'll go again. If I don't, not happening. So I only went once. So here we go. I'm almost done. All right, now, do you remember how we transfer this onto the construction paper? So I used the heavy hand with my pencil. And now I want to transfer this graphite onto my construction paper. So I'm going to turn it upside down, position it where I'd like it to be on my paper. And let me just sharpen this pencil. It's a little dull. Okay. And I'm going to hold my pencil on an angle and just rub over everything I just outlined. And that's going to transfer the graphite. Let's see if you can see it. There, you can see. Very lightly, the toucan is transferring onto the construction paper. So this, of course, is only if you don't want to draw it yourself. Sometimes kids find it hard to draw. If I was in the classroom with you, I could guide you and teach you how to draw this. We will have a drawing lesson, I promise you. But for this project, I just want to get the toucan on the paper. We're learning about the habitat and the watercolor technique that I'm going to teach you. And we will have a drawing lesson, I promise. I know Cassie loves to draw. And Kate. And Dennis, you guys are all my little artists. You all like to draw, I know that. So, let's just get this going on. I'm almost done. I'm rubbing the graphite from the pencil onto the construction paper. I traced it on the one side. Now I'm rubbing it so it transfers to the construction paper. Here's the tail. I think I got everything. Let's double check. Okay. All right, so I have a very, very faint image of the toucan on my paper. I'm just going to go over it to make sure that very lightly with my pencil, I'm going to go over what I just traced. Very gently. I don't want to go too dark because I don't want to see the pencil marks after I do the watercolor. But I want to be able to see the toucan. Okay, now I'm doing his branch. And don't worry about being perfect. You know, I always say, don't worry about being exact. It's not a big deal if we miss something or we do something wrong. Just adds character to our pictures, right? So don't worry about nothing. I'm actually making some of this up, that I'm tracing, because I really didn't trace too well, so I can't see everything. So I'm just creating as I go. And you please feel free to do that as well. Okay, so I believe that's good. Okay, right? All right, there's no line there. Okay, so now I just made it a little bit darker so I could really see the bird. All right, so I don't need the template anymore. But look, if I ever need it again, if I didn't cut it out, I could use this over and over. But sometimes when you cut things out, they lose their shape, they get ripped, but it's safe like this. So I'm going to put this over to the side. Now I'm going to take out my wide paintbrush, and I'm going to do a little section at a time so you can see this technique. Now this is construction paper. It's not watercolor paper. So what happens is the paper is going to curl. So it would be really helpful if you could tape your paper down, okay? I'm not going to do that because I could always uncurl the paper. So let's get started, and let's just paint a small section, not on the bird, around the bird. We're going to do this top corner here with water. Then I'm going to go into my green paint, and I'm going to put some green paint on my brush, and then just paint over this water. Oh, there must have been some blue in my green. And what's happening is the water is going to spread the paint and give it a softer look rather than a dark green. It's going to give it kind of like that blurred look. And I'm going to do the same now to the other side. I'm going to wet my paper, add a little yellow. Remember, this top part is where some light could still come through. I want to kind of highlight around my bird too. And the water is going to carry my watercolor paint along the paper. See how the blurry look is? See how that's coming out? Very pretty. And the paper is rippling because it is construction paper and not watercolor paper. But you know what? That's okay. It still comes out beautiful. See, I'm adding some water, painting a little bit. Don't add too much though, because then it would really, see, look at that. Look at how the colors just start bleeding in with the water. That looks really nice. Go into your yellow paint too. Add the yellow around the bird. Look at that. This wet on wet looks so beautiful. Add your green. Let's go around on this side. Use the water to paint. Paint some water on our background. Add some green. Add some yellow. Now we're going to go below the bird. Oh, I still got this section. Sorry. Let me finish this. See, my paintbrush is wet and dirty, so it's actually painting with the water. Okay. And now let's go to the bottom below the branch, which is going to be a little bit darker area. Be careful not to paint over the toucan's tail. So the green, look at how it just bleeds. You see that? Look how pretty that's coming out. So we're making it a little darker below the bird because the light's not really hitting down here, especially right under the branch. There's no light coming to underneath the branch where he's sitting. But we could throw some lights in as we get closer to the bottom of the image. Here we go. We got our green bleeding in with the water. I'm going to add a little bit of yellow down here, just for argument's sake. There we go. Okay, so this is a wet on wet technique. It's giving us that blurry effect. Now, before it dries, I'm going to take some salt, regular table salt, and I'm going to pinch it over the wet watercolor. And what's going to happen, the water and the colors are going to crystallize, creating like almost like a starburst effect. Really beautiful effect. And we're going to let that dry. I'm going to get rid of this salt. I'll put it right here in this cup. Hold on. Ah! I'm spilling salt all over. Be careful with the salt. Okay. Now, this has to dry, but you could see how it's starting to crystallize on the paper. You see over here and here? Keep your paper flat. Watercolor will drip. Now, I'm going to put this aside because I have already prepared one and it's dry. Okay? Look at this one. Look at the crystal effect from the salt. How beautiful did that come out? All right? So now our background has dried. The salt has given it that beautiful crystal effect. Now it's time to paint our toucan. Now a toucan has this long beak. And these vibrant colors are in this beak. And this is how he protects himself, because the fruits, all in the canopy layer and the emergent layer of the rainforest, all their vibrant colors, he kind of gets camouflaged amongst them. So his bright toucan beak protects him from predators by blending in with all the beautiful colors of the fruits. So let's start with our beak. You can paint him any color you want. You could add any colors to his beak. Now you can use that wet on wet effect of his beak if you prefer. This way the colors will bleed together. Or you could just separate them with your watercolor brush. That's up to you. Now what I did when my watercolor dried, I outlined my toucan and my brush, my branch, with a crayon, a black crayon. And the reason I did this was, if I use the wet on wet effect for his beak, it may bleed into the background. But by using the crayon, the wax protects the border so the colors don't go any further. So let's start with this beak. And I'm going to use my pointier brush now. And I'd like to start with some red on the tip of his beak. So I'm putting a little water with my brush inside the wax outline crayon, wax crayon. There's waxing crayons. And I'm going to dip it in my red paint and just dab look at that. I only dabbed it and it went flying across his beak, because it's being carried by the water that I put on. I don't even have to brush. I'm just dipping. I'm dabbing the brush onto his beak. And look how beautiful that's coming out. The water is carrying it in towards his beak. Now, if I lifted this up and showed you, that water is going to drip right down my paper. So I'm going to start with that red right on the tip. And I'm going to clean my brush now. And I'm going to let that sit. Now, what color should we do next on his beak? We've got red. I mixed it all up over there. Let's see. Let's paint it first with the water. Don't forget, we got to use water. My water's getting a little dirty, and that's okay. I think I'm going to add a little water right here. How about orange? I'm going to see how orange goes over there. Orange looks pretty. Just dabbing the orange in. And that's looking pretty good. Don't even have to brush. I just have to dab it. I'm going to add a little more water up on the top. And get my orange paint. Put my brush in my paint. And dab the orange into there. Ooh, this is working nice too. The two colors are starting to bleed together. That looks pretty good. Now I'm going to paint this whole side. Now you could be adding any colors you want. You don't have to add my colors, okay? I'm going to add this water and it's going to carry that orange over a little bit. Okay. I'm going to add some green to the bottom of my beak because I like green a lot. Let's see what happens when we do that. Oh, look at that. And I'll do some on the top, bottom there. Look at how that's blending. What other color? How about blue? Let's put some blue in there. Blue's a beautiful color. I'll put the blue on the top end. Ah, so beautiful. So vibrant. And last, I'm going to add yellow. I'm going to add some yellow. Now, don't be stressing over this. Just add whatever colors you like. Don't worry how it bleeds, because it's really beautiful no matter how it bleeds. Toucans are beautiful birds. Every beak is different. None are the same. Sort of like a snowflake. They're all different. Dab it into the colors. And if you want to revisit, like the red, make the red stronger. I'm going to go revisit my red, just to make the tip of the beak a little bit stronger red. Yeah, look how nice. And you see how it's being protected by the waxy crayon? It's not going out into my background. Oh, I'm loving this. I'm really, really loving this. I hope you are too. Maybe I'll get some more orange. put some darker orange up here. Love, love, love it. Love, love, love. Now this has got to take some time to dry, so do not lift up your paper and it'll just drip down and ruin your whole picture. So let's go back now to the rest of the toucan. This area here is generally yellow, so I'm going to just paint that yellow with my paintbrush, not using any wet on wet technique, just simply painting. See how nice it's going right around his eye. I'll go back for some more paint. Continue the yellow section of my bird. There we go. The wax border really helps keep the colors in their area because they tend to bleed into each other. If we don't, that's a nice vibrant yellow. And the rest of his body is actually black. So I'm going to go into my black paint and start painting his body all around. Uh-oh, it's bleeding into the yellow. My mistake, but that's okay. You know what? It'll add a little character and it'll add a little depth to my painting. Little shadow. Add a little shading if you want. We're just painting our bird right now. Beautiful black toucan body. Okay. How are we doing over there? Is everybody following? Look how beautiful the beak is drying. So imagine all the fruits up in the tree, and he's just blending right in because there's yellow bananas and red and orange berries and oranges and blue blueberries or whatever fruits that are up there. He's blending right in, and he's protected from those predators because they just think he's a piece of fruit. Unless they want to eat a piece of fruit, then they might go after him. But this guy's from the rainforest. Beautiful rainforest. We need to protect our rainforest too, you know. They're cutting too much of the rainforest down, and if we have no rainforest left, it's not going to be very good for our earth because we need those trees. All right, we're almost done with his body. And I think he's coming out really beautiful. Leave the feet. We're going to give the feet a different color, okay? He's got his tail down at the bottom. And sometimes you got to decipher between the tail and the branch. You got to be careful. Okay? And add a little water and paint as you go. There we go. And if you don't have a good brush, it makes it harder to paint. So if you need a better brush, let me know, and I'll see if I could send you out a new one. Something that makes it easier to work with. All right, so now I'm going to do his little feeties. I'm going to add a little blue and brown together to make his feet. His little claws. Look at that. How cute he is. All right, so we need a little more black. There's an area I missed. And that's done. Okay, so now let's work on the branch. So I'm going to use my brown paint for the branch. And there's a little bit black paint left on it, which is okay because I'm going to give layers. I'm going to do, uh-oh, get a little blue going into my branch. I'm going to do layers of the branch. And that's good because it's going to give it a more realistic look. So I'm doing, this is more of a wash where it's very thin with the paint and more water. See, there's more water than there is paint for this first layer. And then we're going to let that layer dry. Now I see I have a little black over here. That was my dirty brush. A little bit more brown over here. But it's faint. It's not really dark. So let's just give that some time to dry. And I'm going to get a fresh cup of water too, because my water is getting a little too dark. Show you how I did it here. If you look on the branch, it's a little darker on the bottom where the light is not hitting. It's dark on the top, but not as dark as the bottom, and it's a little bit lighter in between where the branch curves, so the light is hitting that curved area. So we're going to add lights and darks to our branch. So right now, we just have a very soft wash of color on our branch. The toucan's beak is drying. That's why I'm keeping it flat. I have allergies. If you hear me sniffling, I'm sorry. All right, so let's go back in and we're going to add some green and brown, and you can mix the colors. Let me show you how I do this. I use the back of my watercolors as like a place to blend my watercolors. So I'm mixing green with black because the moss that grows on the top of the branches, I want to show that green moss. That's usually on the top layer of the branch coming down. See how much darker it is to the soft wash that we just put down? So I gave it the effect like it's hanging by bringing my brush down, okay? And it's starting to bleed with the other colors. It's dark up here, and I would just bring my brush down to bring the color down and blend in with the water that's left from the wash, okay? So already we're starting to give a little shape to the branch. All right, so now on the bottom, I'm gonna clean my brush, and I'm just gonna use brown mixed with black. So it's gonna be really dark, but not too dark, so it's gonna still have a brown effect. And we've got some of that moss hanging down. And this is the underbelly of the branch that you can't really see. Okay. Now I'm going fast. You should take your time. So you can see the difference in the colors. We have the green and brown on the top, and then the black and brown on the bottom. And the underlayer is the layer that we did a soft wash to give a base color. And then we worked around it. So this branch now, instead of being flat, kind of appears to have a little curve to it, a little light coming on the top and a little less light on the bottom while we use the different values, the lights and the darks. Okay? All right, now, let's clean our brush. And I have one last spot to do. I have to do his eye, and his eye is black. And around it is yellow, so I have to clean this really good. And let's get the yellow going on. Okay. All right, so now I finished painting the toucan. And what really finishes off a painting is when you mat it. Matting it is by placing it on something that enhances the look, finishes the look of your painting. I could just hang it up on the wall, not being framed or matted, but it would look so much more beautiful if I mat it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take our painting. I've already done it with this one. I'm sending you this big piece of black construction paper. Now, you could center it, but it's so much more interesting and more aesthetically pleasing to look at. Aesthetically pleasing. It's more balanced and looks much more attractive if I set it up higher with equal margins, top and sides, and a big fat margin on the bottom. This is the way I like to do it, but you could do it whatever you feel looks best. So when your painting is dry, and not until it's dry, because if you pick it up too soon, the waters will drip down the paper and you'll be very upset that your painting is ruined. So not until it's completely dry do you take your painting and mat it on a black piece of construction paper. Now what's the way to do that? There's even a secret to that, and I'm going to show you how to do it. You want to make sure the painting's going to stay down. I'm going to take this painting here, the one where we did just the background. It's still wet, but I want to show you how to mat. Actually, you know what? I'll use just a plain piece of construction paper so I don't ruin that. So here's, pretend this is your painting of your toucan, and you want to now mount him on the black construction paper. So kind of eyeball it first. Let's see, do I like the way that looks? The two margin on the side, they look about equal. Is it about the same size as the top? Let me put it up just a little bit more. That looks pretty good. And yes, I have a big margin on the bottom, but I do like the way that looks. So I'm going to mount it there. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your glue or your glue stick. I'm going to use this purple glue so you could see. And the easiest thing to do is starting at one corner is make an X on your paper. X marks the spot. Of course, this isn't the side of the image. We're pretending that the image is on the other side. And then just turn it over. Carefully place it down so it's all properly spaced. And then gently press down. And this will keep the corners down and the center mounted to your black construction paper. What do you think of that? So let's recap what we learned today. We learned about the rainforest, which is a habitat for what? The toucan, which is what we painted today. The toucan. And the rainforest has layers. The top layer, which is the emergent layer. Those are the tallest trees in the rainforest. The next level is the canopy. And the canopy is where our toucan lives. Do you remember that? That is where the rainforest is the thickest part of the rainforest. Then, after the canopy, we have the understory, which is shorter trees and plants that are younger. See, if they're younger, they're not as tall. And then the very bottom layer is the undergrowth, and that's where the shrubs and small plants are, and they get the least amount of sunlight because it has to get through the emergent, the canopy, and the understory before it gets to the floor. So sunlight has a long way to travel before it gets to the bottom. So this here section with all the pretty colors is where all the fruit is and where our toucan is. His shelter is in the canopy section. He's safe from predators because his colorful toucan beak blends with the beautiful colors of the fruits. His water supply comes from the rain and it nestles itself into the leaves, and he just has to drink his water out of the leaves. And he has plenty of room in here to have his little baby eggs, 2 to 4 eggs. He finds a little crevice in the tree trunks and he makes a nest for his eggs. So that's our rainforest habitat and our toucan sand, wet on wet, and salt technique for watercolor painting. So I hope you enjoyed your lesson today as much as I enjoyed doing it with you. I can't wait to see you in a classroom again. It's going to be a lot more fun so I could see how you're doing. So until we meet again, this is Miss Lisa saying ciao ciao from my table of art. Until we meet again, always keep art in your life and have fun. Ciao, kids.